Between 2013 and 2017, the lawyers working for Jeffrey Epstein's enterprise made 97 separate cash withdrawals from their banks. But, they didn't just walk in and ask for $1,000,000.
Right.
Every single one of those 97 withdrawals was for exactly $7,500.
Which is, it's a very specific number. And it's specific because the U.S. banking system has this, mechanical threshold. If you withdraw $10,000 or more in cash, the bank is legally required to file a suspicious activity report.
Right, the alarm bells go off.
Exactly. So by pulling out exactly $7,500 97 times, the enterprise was able to structurally engineer their funding to operate entirely beneath that alarm system.
They weren't breaking the machine at all. They just understood the machine's rules better than the people who actually built it. And, well, that brings us to the mission for you today. Welcome to this deep dive. We are taking you through a massive, eye-opening global forensic report titled The Structural Architecture of Institutional Corruption.
Yeah, and looking through this source material, it is dense.
Oh, totally. It's full of these heavy, intimidating academic phrases, terms like episodic malfeasance and biopolitical erasure.
Yeah, the kind of words that just make your eyes glaze over.
Exactly. So we made a promise for today's deep dive, and it is a strict rule. No confusing big terms. We are going to translate this really heavy academic text into plain English to reveal how the world really works. Because the core argument here, it kind of flips our entire understanding of corruption upside down.
It really does. Because we have this tendency to view corruption as a glitch. Like we see a CEO embezzling funds or some politician taking a bribe, and we categorize it as a malfunction.
Right, just a few bad apples breaking the rules.
Exactly,
Yeah.
a few bad actors in a healthy system. But the forensic data in this report argues the exact opposite. Corruption is not a glitch. It is the operating system itself. It's built into our laws specifically to move wealth from the most vulnerable people directly to the financial elite.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really understand how the system is designed to extract wealth, we have to look at an industry that most people assume is just, purely built on caring for people, right? Child welfare.
Right.
The report analyzes the massive privatized foster care and adoption market. And to understand the money there, you first have to look at the 1997 Adoption and Safe Families Act, or ASFDARO.
Yeah, and instead of getting bogged down in complex legal terms about statutory mandates, let's just look at how it actually works. ASFA essentially installed a 15-month stopwatch inside every struggling family.
Wait, a literal stopwatch?
A literal countdown clock. The law dictates that if a child is in foster care for 15 out of the last 22 months, the state legally terminates the parent's rights.
Wow.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter if the parents are actively making progress. The state just cuts the tie, which essentially manufactures this permanent supply of legal orphans.
Which is brutal because, if a parent loses their job or their housing and needs state safety nets to get back on their feet, that often takes way longer than 15 months. But the law weaponizes time against them.
Right. And once a child is in that privatized market, the financial incentives get really, really perverse. The government pays private agencies anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000 just for a placement. But the real vulnerability is the double bounty loophole.
Yes, the double bounty. I want to use an analogy here to explain this because it's so wild. Imagine taking your car to a mechanic, right, to fix the brakes. They completely fail to fix it, so the brakes still don't work, but they charge you full price anyway. Then they take the car back, try again, fail a second time, and charge you a second time. That's exactly what private agencies do with these kids.
It really is. Severely traumatized children often struggle in new placements, so the placements fall apart. But the agency doesn't return the money. They just replace the child and get paid again.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they get paid multiple times for failing. And a market that reliable naturally attracts private equity. The report talks about these dividend recapitalizations, which sounds like, fancy Wall Street jargon.
Let's translate that. What is a dividend recapitalization in plain English?
Plain English, it's basically a predatory loan scheme. Private equity firms buy local child care agencies, and then they force those local agencies to take out massive bank loans.
Okay.
Then the private equity firm pockets that loan cash as a dividend, just pure profit for themselves.
So they just walk away with the cash.
Yep. And the local agency is left drowning in debt. The report shows they average a massive 7.1 times debt-to-cash flow ratio.
Wait, what's a normal ratio?
A healthy organization is usually around 3.
Oh, wow, so it's more than double.
Way more. And to pay off that massive debt, they have to cut staff by like 11.6%, and the quality of care just plummets.
Because all the money meant for the kids is just servicing Wall Street debt. And this isn't just in the U.S. The report highlights how this works globally without using any heavy financial jargon. Like, they point to this thing called Project Mariba in Australia.
Oh, yeah, the real estate scam.
Exactly. Executives there bought residential houses privately with their own money and then leased those exact same houses back to their own child welfare agencies at a 20% markup.
So they became their own landlords.
Yes, and they billed the taxpayers for all the renovations, the carpets, the paint, everything. They hoarded $30 million in public funds while the kids were living in totally unstable conditions.
What's fascinating here is how these exact same financial tricks, the loans, the shell games, they aren't just used by Wall Street. They're the exact same tools used by criminal syndicates.
Right, because we just saw how legal businesses use these loopholes to hide extraction. But now we look at how elite criminal networks use the exact same loopholes. They're just hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, the report calls it network convergence, but we don't need that term. It's just a simple truth. Legitimate private equity and illegal human trafficking networks use the exact same structural camouflage.
Like the IRS Form 990 loophole.
Exactly.
Form 990 is just the standard tax document for nonprofits. But by just literally leaving the narrative sections blank or spreading out the executive pay across all these offshore shell companies, local agencies can look super poor on paper.
Right, they look completely broke to the local regulators.
But really, they're moving untaxed millions to places like the Cayman Islands. And that's exactly the Epstein blueprint.
It is. Epstein's criminal enterprise used this exact same machinery. We talked about those 97 cash withdrawals of exactly $7,500 to avoid the banking alarms.
Right.
Well, his enterprise required massive amounts of capital to run, and the administrative state actually helped facilitate it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Epstein's network actually got a special deal in the U.S. Virgin Islands to pay only a 4% tax rate.
4%.
While the standard U.S. corporate rate was like 35%. So by doing that, they kept an estimated $300 million out of public hands just to fund their trafficking operation. It's the exact same offshore shell game used by private equity in the UK.
It really shows how paperwork is just used to mask the movement of money. But it gets darker. Because it's one thing to use paperwork to hide money, but the report details how they use paperwork to literally erase a human being's history just to protect this massive market.
Because to feed a massive adoption market, you have to create the market first, right?
Right. The report explains how groups like the Christian Alliance for Orphans, they vastly inflated global statistics. They claim there were 210 million orphans worldwide.
210 million, that's huge.
But they were counting children who simply lived in poverty but still had living parents.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But it created this massive white savior narrative, which created massive demand in wealthy countries, and that led directly to child stealing and fraudulent paper orphans.
Wait, really? So the state actually acts like a forger?
Yeah, I'll walk you through the reality of Texas law. It's what the report calls biopolitical erasure. But translated, it just means the state is falsifying records. When an adoption happens in Texas, the state literally locks the original birth certificate in a vault.
Like a physical vault?
Yes. And then they issue an amended one that literally pretends the biological parents never existed.
The legal hurdles to undo that are just insane. For an adult adoptee in Texas trying to find their own medical history, it is a maddening catch-22. To get your original birth certificate, which costs $10, you must already know the exact names of the biological parents listed on the sealed record.
Right. You have to know the secret to get the secret.
And if you use the state registry to try and find a match, they force you to undergo a full hour of psychological counseling.
Yeah, as if wanting to know your own DNA is some kind of mental defect.
It's crazy.
This raises an important question, though. If the system goes to this length to hide the origins of these children, where are the vulnerable populations coming from in the first place?
Right, because to feed a multi-billion-dollar foster industry, you need displaced people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The report talks about the security extraction nexus, but really it's just a displacement machine. Big industries like oil and gas move into an area and completely destabilize the community.
A huge example of this is the man camps in the Bakken oil fields.
Oh, right.
These massive temporary housing camps for male oil workers brought a staggering surge of violence to indigenous women and children. And 96% of that violence was perpetrated by non-native actors exploiting legal loopholes.
Yeah, and that chaos creates the fractured families that the foster system then turns into a revenue stream. It's a pipeline.
But when the public starts to catch on to this machinery, the government steps in to cover it up. The report goes into this massive DOJ cover-up.
Yeah, the Epstein Files Transparency Act, or EFT.
Right. In 2025, Congress passed EFT, demanding all these files be released without any redactions, just to save powerful people from embarrassment.
And what the report found in its audit is explosive.
Mm-hmm.
The DOJ didn't just redact names under grand jury privacy rules. They silently deleted 64,259 files from their public servers.
Just deleted them.
Gone. And this included Dataset 9, which was the minute-by-minute guard logs from the special housing unit where Epstein died.
Unbelievable. And while the public argues over fake internet rumors about all this, actual structural changes are happening in plain sight. The report spends a lot of time on the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025. And look, we have to be clear here. We are reporting this strictly based on the source text. We aren't taking any political stance. We're just conveying what the researchers analyzed.
Right, impartially looking at the architecture. The report notes that Project 2025 aims to use this rule called Schedule F to fire thousands of independent government experts and replace them with loyalists. And it highlights plans to literally rename Health and Human Services to the Department of Life and tie federal funding to state abortion reporting.
Which the report flags as a massive expansion of government surveillance over bodily autonomy.
Exactly. And it echoes the exact kind of control we just saw in the adoption market, and even parallels Epstein's transhumanist Zorro Ranch plans.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about structural control over human reproduction.
So what does this all mean? After uncovering how deeply this financial and bureaucratic machine runs, it is super easy to feel completely hopeless. But how do we actually stop this?
Well, the good news is the NYU Stern Center actually lays out 3 highly specific, concrete solutions, and no jargon here either.
Okay, let's hear them.
Fix number 1, cap the debt. Make a law that says private equity cannot borrow more than the standard 3.0 times ratio when buying care facilities. If they can't grow using real revenue, they shouldn't grow at all.
Cut off the artificial money printer. I like that. What's the second one?
Fix number 2, stop the real estate scam. Ban any agency from getting federal foster care money, like Title IV refunds, if they sell the land under their treatment centers just to lease it back to themselves at a markup.
Right. If you do a sale leaseback, you lose your public subsidies. That makes total sense.
Exactly. And the third fix, protect the referees. Pass laws to protect independent civil servants from political purges, so that IRS and DOJ experts are actually there to catch these financial tricks.
And pass a law to pierce grand jury secrecy when the government is obviously using it to protect powerful criminals.
Exactly. Force transparency into the system.
We have covered so much ground today. We connected the dots between foster care loopholes, private equity debt, elite criminal networks, and government cover-ups. And we did it all without needing a dictionary.
Yeah. And before we go, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Throughout this deep dive, we've seen how the law has been used to turn human misery into a reliable, debt-funded revenue stream. But what happens to the very fabric of our society when the economy starts viewing the basic biological bond between a parent and a child not as a sacred human relationship, but simply as an untapped financial market?
Wow.
If human love and connection can be successfully financialized and traded on a ledger, is there a single aspect of the human experience that is truly safe from private equity?
That is a haunting question to end on, but it is exactly why we do this. Thank you for joining this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems around you, and we'll catch you next time.